Hi everyone, thank you for joining this video. I'm Vanessa from speakenglishwithvanessa.com, and today I have a special guest. This is Jessica from the IELTS Energy podcast, and she is here to tell us about the IELTS test and how it can improve your English, how it can improve your life, and we're going to talk about it together. So Jessica, would you like to tell us a little bit about the IELTS test?
Sure, yeah. First of all, IELTS stands for the International English Language Testing System. So it's a long name for a test that is pretty straightforward, actually. People have to take this test in order to go to English-speaking universities. So that's the academic IELTS. So I think every English-speaking university in the world accepts IELTS scores. So if it's your dream to study your bachelor's or get your master's or PhD, you'll probably have to take this test. But there's also a general IELTS test, and that's for people who want to move abroad, maybe by themselves or with their families. So I think like the goals for the general test are sometimes bigger than the academic test. Like some of my students, they want to move with their kids from whatever country to like Canada, for example, because the education system is better, or, like they have really huge goals for their lives. So IELTS can be really important for some people.
Yes. So it's useful if you want to study abroad, live abroad, work abroad, just move abroad. I know a lot of people, that's their goal. You want to learn English so that you can use it with real live English speakers around the world. So this test is useful for living and traveling. And even if you're not going to take the IELTS exam, I want to tell you really quick why you should watch this video and how it can be useful to you. So today, Jessica and I are going to be talking about this back and forth. So it's going to be a really useful time to hear native speakers talking together. We're going to use a lot of natural expressions. We're going to be talking back and forth just in a casual, natural way. So don't leave if you are not taking the IELTS test. You too can benefit from this video.
And you know what? I've had some of my best students are taking IELTS just because they have hit a plateau in their English studies. They don't have a specific goal anymore. Like they know they want to speak English better, but they don't know how, and they don't have any direction. So some of the students in our course, actually, they're doing this just to challenge themselves and just for their own personal satisfaction, just to have this study plan that we created, because our study plan, sure, it focuses on testing skills. Of course, it's a test preparation course, but it's a balance. So everything on the study plan is a balance. One activity a day is to do something in the course, like watch a lecture and do some worksheets, maybe vocabulary or grammar, writing, everything's in there. But then the other activity is focused on improving your overall English skills. So it could be an assignment like watch a YouTube video for 3 minutes and try and talk exactly like the person, or, it really is motivating for our students. So we've gotten really good feedback, even from people that aren't taking the test. They still love our course.
Sure, I think that's a great point to make, that it's a great thing to have a goal when you're learning English. And maybe if you feel like you've reached that plateau, you need something to motivate you further. And IELTS does have a speaking section, which is what we're going to talk about today. So this test is not simply about writing and reading or listening, but it's also going to challenge your speaking skills. So today we have a special surprise to test this kind of question system and to use it together. So would you like to tell us a little bit about the speaking section of the test? What can English learners expect for the speaking section?
Sure, yeah. The speaking test is face-to-face with an examiner. So this is what sets it apart from TOEFL, because we get a lot of questions like, what's the difference between IELTS and TOEFL? Which one should I take? I don't know. That's a good question. Of course, I am on the IELTS side of things, so I think that it's better than TOEFL. Because on TOEFL, it's not natural. It's weird. You have to talk to a computer and it's odd. That doesn't happen in real life unless it's like this. You're talking to someone facing you on the computer video. TOEFL doesn't have that. So on IELTS, you sit in a room with an examiner. Perhaps they look something like me. And um, and then there are 3 parts on the speaking test. So part 1 is just like personal general questions, easy, like, do you like to go shopping? Tell me about your apartment, stuff like that. And then part 2 is the long turn, a sort of speech in a way. You're given a topic and you have to talk about it for 2 minutes. So that takes a lot of practice. I think people are really surprised when they start practicing this and start trying, and then they run out of stuff to say. And because I teach online a lot, our students in the course, and I'm just waiting and looking at them, and I'm like, that's not even a minute, and they're like, what? It felt forever. So yeah, we do have to practice that part a lot. And then part 3. Those questions are more difficult, stuff you expect on like an exam, like talk about the advantages and disadvantages of wearing school uniforms, or I don't know, kind of boring stuff. But these questions are really fun to practice because they're often topics that people don't talk about in their native language, right? Like I don't talk about this stuff with my friends. Like it's weird. So it is really fun to practice these things, and it motivates our students to start reading the newspaper, to start these other activities that really benefit their English overall, but also their lives, because they're learning more information that they wouldn't otherwise. So yeah, lots of fun stuff to practice.
And that's a good point, that your students are also having the chance to meet with you personally to practice those skills. So we're going to talk about how you can use Jessica and the IELTS Energy's 3 Keys course at the end of this video, but don't forget about it. You can meet with her and really learn in depth about how to succeed on the IELTS test and the speaking section. So are you ready to practice some questions together?
Sure. So I'm going to ask you some speaking questions that could definitely be on the exam. Are you ready, Vanessa?
I am going to try my best.
All right. So I'll ask you some questions and give you some feedback that would be based on what an examiner would look for. Okay. First of all, Vanessa, do you work or are you a student?
I work at the moment. I have a job and I work for myself. My job is to teach English online, but I am also a student of life. I am always learning anything throughout my life.
How do you think your job might change in the future?
Oh, that's a great question. How will my job change in the future? Well, I think that as English learners around the world find other methods to learn English, as English becomes more popular or less popular, I will have to adapt and find other ways and new ways to help people communicate better.
Okay, that was great. So, what the examiner mind would be thinking with that? First of all, you're graded on 4 things, right? So, pronunciation, of course, perfect. So you would get the highest score there. The biggest thing for raising someone's speaking score on the exam is pronunciation. That is the easiest category to raise your score, because if you show emotion, if you can laugh a little bit, if your voice goes up and down, you're gonna get a 7 or higher, and that's what most students want. So we focus on that a lot in our course. And grammar, that's the hardest thing to raise your score. I mean, as a teacher, imagine like improving someone's grammar so significantly in like a month. Like that doesn't happen really. So, I mean, we do, of course, talk about sentence structures and stuff like that in the course, but really that is not the most efficient use of one's time. You did use some interesting vocabulary. So you had like adapt, for example. So that would be a high scoring word. The examiner also listens for interesting like idiomatic language. So these sort of natural phrases that Vanessa, that you teach your students. These are the phrases that are going to get students high scores on the exam. And the length of your answer was good. So in part 1, we want like 3 to 5 sentences, not too long, not too short. And you did speak a little bit more slowly than you would naturally. Did you feel that?
I felt like that because especially I was thinking about my answer and trying to formulate what I wanted to say. So would you suggest that students speak slowly because they're thinking about it, or would you suggest that they just try to speak quickly? I think a lot of my students want to speak quickly because that's what they hear native speakers doing. So what's your advice about that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the mistake that students make is trying to speak too quickly, and then they make more grammar mistakes. Their pronunciation gets worse. They pause because they like can't think of ideas fast enough. So speaking quickly hurts their score in so many ways. So yeah, I always tell students on test day, speak a little bit more slowly. It gives you time to think. It helps you sort out your ideas and your vocabulary. So it definitely raises your score. And like, there's no, like criteria that the examiner's looking at, like speed, very fast, good, high score, like that. No, that doesn't happen. And you also had like a filler phrase there to give yourself time to think like, ooh, that's a great question. So that's a test strategy, right? Like in some of my YouTube videos and some of our podcasts, we talk about these natural phrases that students can use on the exam to not only buy themselves time to think, but when you use a phrase like that, like, oh gosh, my mind just went blank, just a second. Okay. Like if you're, talking through your thoughts like that, that raises your vocabulary score, right? Because it's these natural native speaker phrases. And those are things that most courses and textbooks don't teach students. Like I've never seen a textbook say how to say your mind is blank. Like I've never seen that. So yeah, we try, and you try to do the same thing, right? You want your students to speak like people do today, not like a textbook that was written 20 years ago, but right? Like how do we really talk?
Yes.
That's what's valuable. Yeah.
Yes. So some of the main points you said too are to improve your score. Pronunciation is something that you can really focus on to improve quicker than say general grammar. And also improving these kind of filler expressions, thinking about some of them, maybe learning a couple filler expressions or high quality vocabulary words that you can use in any circumstance. So the expression I use to say, oh, that's a good question, or oh, just a moment, let me think about it. You can use that with any question. It doesn't matter what they ask you. So thinking about some of those to purposefully use on the test could help.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, looking at some of the material that you've produced and then comparing that with also some of the stuff that we give our students, it is crossed over. I mean, there's so many similarities. I don't want people to think about IELTS as, removed from real life, right? Because that's kind of how we think about tests sometimes. And the fact is, like, it's not just some university algebra exam or whatever. Like, it's not that. It's a language test. It's a test of your English. So you have to have good English. You have to try and approach how native speakers communicate. So all the stuff that you're teaching your students would directly transfer to the exam and raise people's scores. So yeah, it was fun for me looking at some of your materials and being like, I use that. Like I put that in my course too. So yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, a lot of those natural expressions are crossed over in daily life, in professional life, business English, exam, IELTS, speaking test. You can use a lot of those natural expressions in a variety of situations for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, this was the first section. You said there's different sections. So this was the first section. What about the next part, the longer part?
Do you want to try this? It's tough. Okay.
Well, I think it would be a good chance to show people who are watching this what a good or bad answer might be and some of your tips.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So on the real exam, the student would have 1 minute to prepare their answer. So they get a pencil and paper and they get to take notes, and that's their chance to organize and think. But Vanessa, you don't get that minute, all right? So this is a bigger challenge. Vanessa, I would like you to describe your best friend from high school.
Oh, okay. And can I ask you a question first before we get started? When the students go to the exam and they have this section, is there going to be a timer? Is there any way that they can know how long they've been talking?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's not up to the student to keep track. Luckily, they don't. That's one less thing they have to think about. The examiner times everything, right? Like that's part of their job. They keep track of everything. So I am the examiner in this situation. I'm just going to pull the timer up on my phone, this trusty tool. And then, okay, are you ready to start speaking?
I'm ready.
All right.
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right. So my best friend in high school, I met her my second to last year of high school, and her name is Kate. And we had a lot in common because we both really enjoyed doing energetic, fun things. We weren't really too serious. So we really liked to listen to music together and run around and do silly things and dress up together. And I think these kind of activities helped our friendship to grow. And there was one time that we had a really great memory together. My final year of high school, my senior year, we were in a play together. So every night we went to play practice with the theater class, and we just practiced the play and we did it again and again and just had a lot of fun memories with our other friends, but also with each other because it was in this fun setting where we were both having a good time and enjoying memorizing lines and talking about, what we were going to do in the play and what we were going to wear and where we were going to move. So I think those memories really solidified our friendship. And even now, we still talk through the internet. And a couple weeks ago, I met with her for the first time in a couple years, actually, because I'd been living abroad. So we got together again, and it was just really cool to pick up where we left off and just chat about high school or chat about what we were doing. I got to meet her boyfriend. She got to meet my husband. And we just really fell back into our friendship. So I feel really lucky to have a friend like her who saw me during those times of being a teenager and being in high school and just, getting together and having fun together. But now that we're adults, really getting to know each other as who we are now.
That's good. That's 2 minutes. That's 2 minutes. So
it feels like a long time.
I know, right? Like I could see as you were speaking, there were a couple seconds between thoughts where you're like, I still am talking. Like there's still more time. You know what I mean? Like it does feel like a long time. So that's why, so obviously like you're a native speaker, you teach English for a living, you know how to talk. And even for you, this 2 minutes was like kind of weird. Like, really? How do I fill this? Not only how do I fill this, because obviously you're able to keep talking, but how do I fill this in an organized way that will give me a high score on the exam, right? So that's why in our course, and actually we have a recent podcast episode about this, how to do part 2, describing people, because in part 2, there's like 4 basic things. You're going to describe a person, a place, an object, or an event and experience. So those are the 4 general things. Well, I just moved really fast. I wonder if the camera caught me. So this describing a person is like likely that you would get something like that. So we did a whole episode about a strategy for that. First, you describe what they look like, because in your description, Vanessa, and it's funny because Lindsay did this too when she practiced, and a lot of my students do this, like you never actually described what she looked like or her personality, like, you know what I mean?
Right,
and like
describe the activities we did together, but maybe not those really simple things.
Yeah. So I think it's nice to have a strategy for each of these things. Like when you're asked to describe a person, First of all, like directly answer that. So this is part of English communication, right? Being more direct than a lot of people are in their own language or culture. So this is another thing to practice, not only for the test, but just for life in general if you're gonna live or study abroad. So we want to answer the question directly right away. So if you're asked to describe a person, first of all, describe what they look like, and then describe their personality, and then tell a story about that person. So I think the most like coherent and organized part of your response was the story about the play, right? Because like when you tell a story, it's naturally organized. So that's a strategy we practice in our course, like how to tackle any part 2 question with a story. And that's a fun thing to practice just for communication, but it's a necessary test strategy.
Sure, and that's going to help students feel like that 2 minutes passes faster than it would otherwise because they've got something that they're following, and 2 minutes goes by quicker when you're telling a story about first I did this, then I did this, then I did this, and this is the conclusion. It feels a little more natural than just trying to think about random ideas about that question.
Exactly. And it also improves usually their pronunciation and their vocabulary, because when you're telling a story, you have specific details in mind, and that makes your vocabulary more specific, right? And that's, again, how you raise your score. And then as far as pronunciation goes, if you compare a student's answer, like if they're just thinking about a test answer, like my friend is very nice, and they just kind of, like sound nervous. But if they start telling a personal story, they relax, and that reflects in their pronunciation, and they get more expressive. And like I said, like that's how you raise your pronunciation score. So all of these strategies that we talk about in our course and on our podcast, they're directly linked to raising your score. And it's not like tricks and, like secrets and like sabotage the exam. Like, no, like these are just logical skills that you're going to need when you speak English anytime.
Yes, I think especially telling a story, when you do that, you're going to do that with friends. So when you take the IELTS exam, yeah, you're probably going to use that in the 2-minute section. But when you go to Canada and you meet a new friend and they ask you, oh, what do you think about Canada? You're going to have to use a story. Oh, it's pretty good. Yesterday, this happened. That's going to be a story. So using those storytelling skills is really valuable.
Yeah, totally. I think this is something that as English teachers, we practice with students all the time. So there are reasons for that. So yeah, exactly. I mean, I think students get really nervous about participating in a conversation with native speakers. Like I freak out if I'm like in a group of Spanish speakers and I'm like, what am I going to say? But if you have to rehearse it, you have to practice, and you're exactly right. Like this is what we do in conversations. We tell stories about our life. So yeah.
Yes. And that's a question I'd like to ask you as well, that some of my students have asked me about the IELTS exam. They were wondering, should they practice their answers? Is it something that is going to make it seem less natural if, like today, you asked me a question about my best friend from high school? If the examiner asked me that question, would it seem less natural? Would it really be helping my speaking skills? Do you recommend that students practice actual answers in advance, or just study, general English improving skills?
No, they definitely have to practice questions that might be on the exam, because the questions change all the time. And not only that, but the examiner has like so many questions to choose from. You never know what question you're going to be asked. Same in the writing. You never know what you're going to have to write about. That doesn't mean that you can't practice writing an essay. You know what I mean? Like it's the same. It's communication, and you're not practicing specific answers. You're practicing your fluency, right? In speaking and writing. You're practicing getting the ideas out. You're practicing organizing these ideas, and you're practicing the structure that the examiner is looking for, and the fulfilling the expectations that the examiner is looking for. So in our course, I go through really specific skills linked to the test and the grades, and you practice each thing on its own, right? So it's all based on test practice, but it's very like specific skills that they're working on. So yeah, you definitely have to practice real IELTS questions, and they're not going to be the same as on test day. If they are, I will be shocked.
Sure, and that's great advice, just to practice that flow and the order and the different skills that you need to use. Yeah, you need to practice that. That makes sense. And I'm wondering
It's
also
just like
about
fluency, right? Just that's half of the battle is just getting the words out, you guys. And let me first note some of the awesome vocabulary, that Vanessa was able to get out on that speaking part 2 answer. So I noted some stuff down, like you said, pick up where we left off. Right? Like that's a great phrase. And these are phrases that if a student used on the exam, the examiner would be like really impressed and start thinking, oh, like maybe it's a 7. So these key little phrases, you said solidified our relationship. Like that's really an advanced word. Can you imagine hearing a student say that? You'd be so impressed. So like these are things that, guys, if you're watching and you're studying for IELTS, you need to write some of this stuff down, because this is like gold for increasing your score.
Sure. So far, improve your pronunciation, improve your expressions, use these natural kind of expressions, and also high level vocabulary, slip in a couple words that you feel comfortable using, and use expression to describe your answers. And I'm also curious about the third section you said is going to be more general, difficult questions.
Exactly. So what the examiner says to introduce it is he explains that the topics of part 3 are related to the topic of part 2, but they're more general, okay? So, and more difficult, because the test gets more difficult as, you go along, just like any test. So if you were asked to describe your best friend, then a part 3 question might be, how do people make friends today in different ways than they did in the past?
So this is my question. I will try my best to answer it.
That's for you. Go. Just kidding.
Yes. Do people make friends differently? Yes. I think that people make friends differently now because of the internet. I think that people often find friends through social media, or they stay in touch with their friends through the internet more often than like our grandparents did. So I feel like most people nowadays contact their friends through the internet instead of going over to their house. And that's probably how we meet people in the first place too, is through the internet or through more modern means than just...
Okay. I'm going to stop you there. Vanessa. No, that was great. I just wanted to note, because if this were like valid test practice, which all the test practice you do should be valid, right? It should mirror the exam to prepare you in as many ways as possible. So like if you were my student, I would have to stop you, because in part 3, your answer can't be too long, because the examiner wants to ask you 3 to 5 questions, and it has to fit into 4 to 5 minutes. So your answer should be like 45 seconds to a minute. And these are testing strategies and skills that you have to practice, right? Another reason you have to practice for the exam is just getting used to what 2 minutes feels like, what 45 seconds feels like, right? So a strategy to tackle part 3 questions would be to have very organized answers so you don't repeat yourself. Like even in your answer, Vanessa, like you started to sort of repeat ideas, right? Like, so we do meet friends online, and so, and that's something that might lower your fluency score. So we want to practice being very direct. First of all, like give your opinion straight away, a reason, an example, a conclusion, and like done.
And that's something that's great to practice, because maybe it doesn't come as naturally if you're just talking with a friend. Maybe you're gonna be a little less direct, or maybe not quite as organized. So practicing that organized speech is really valuable for the third section.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking part 3, it's like an academic essay, really. I mean, all the linking words, the organization, the advice we give students about writing like a 4-paragraph academic essay, it transfers to speaking part 3. So there's a lot of crossover there, like what linking words to memorize and how specific your example should be. So it's important to practice this.
Sure. And that's a lot of great advice. I really appreciate you telling me that so I can pass it along to my students and also all the people who are watching this. I think hopefully they have pages and pages of notes already. There's a lot of valuable things that you talked about. And the good thing is this video is going to be on YouTube, so people can watch it as many times as they'd like, review it a lot. I recommend it. And you also have a lot of information that you've already put together on your podcast in the course, the 3 Keys course. So could you tell us a little bit more first about your podcast and then about the course?
Yeah. So we have a podcast called IELTS Energy, and we come out with 4 episodes a week. We're into the 200s now. I think we've done like 220 episodes already. They're around 15 minutes on average. I think we're getting longer now because we just like to talk so much, but they're all focused on like really specific things about the test. Like, what should you wear on test day? What are some good linking words for part 2? How should I answer questions about the environment? What are 4 phrasal verbs I can use in part 1? Like, it's really specific stuff. And really helpful. We've had students just like listen to the podcast to prepare for the exam. And then we have a YouTube channel as well, same name, IELTS Energy. So I come out with 2 YouTube videos a week, about 5 minutes, also very specific things about the test. And we've compiled all of our ideas and strategies because we don't give it all away in the podcast, but we've come out with a course called 3 Keys IELTS, and we came out with it last year. We've had a couple hundred students go through it already. In fact, yesterday, I just talked to a student who had never taken the test before, and she took our course, and she got an 8.5 in reading. Like,
wow, that's a great review. That's incredible.
Yeah. Like, even native speakers can't do that. Like, what? It's great. And she's a new mom. Like, she just had a baby. And I was like, what? So we interviewed her for the podcast, and very cool story, very inspirational. But we have a lot of students like that who have come to us with these amazing scores. So one of the biggest advantages of our course, one of the biggest motivators for students is the study plan. Because I think that's what freaks students out the most is like, how much time do I have to spend on this? People are busy. You had a baby, you have a job, people are busy. So I have organized your time for you. I tell you exactly what to do every day, and it's very efficient. There's no wasted time. Like, in the classroom, teachers have to fill time, right? Like, you get paid by the hour or whatever, and you're like, okay, let's do a warmer. Let's, have a conversation for now. It's not test practice. They're just filling time. On the online course, I don't do that. Everything is useful. Everything's directly connected. And one of the greatest feedback things that I've had from a student is that she felt like she was kind of shy. She feels like she's kind of shy. And taking our course has increased her confidence in speaking English. Because of the motivation, because of these, it's full of energy. It's full of cool activities to do that not only improve your testing scores, but also your overall English. So yeah, the feedback on our course has been amazing. So,
yeah, that's a really great way to know too that what you're doing is working, if it's working for a lot of other people. That's the first thing we do whenever we buy anything. When I go to Amazon, the first thing I do is look at the reviews. And if you have a lot of students who've said, wow, this has really improved my score, it's really improved my confidence, my speaking skills, that is what you want. That's the goal. You don't want to waste your time. And from my personal point of view, I think the best thing about courses like this compared to free information online is the organization. You know that you're not wasting any time because a professional, has made that plan so that they know exactly what they should do and how to use that material. There's a lot of free information out there, but you have to organize it and figure out how to do it. Maybe you're not sure if it's the best way to really use that information. So your course is really organized and is going to help people and already has.
Already helps so many people like achieve that 7, the 8. I mean, it's incredible. And honestly, like there's a lot of IELTS information online, and I look through it because I recommend resources to students, and a lot of it is just, not a lot of it, but there's some really, really bad information out there. And like, I've been working with IELTS for 12 years now. I know this test inside and out. I know exactly what you have to do to get the scores you need. And I've been teaching it forever. So there's a new teacher. She might give you, 10 steps, for example, to find a reading question. With me, 3 steps. Like everything is boiled down to 3 steps. That's why it's called 3 Keys IELTS, because everything is as simple as possible, just the easiest way to like find the answers.
Yes, and I think that's a great thing to do, is to find simplicity instead of trying to find 20 reasons or these top 50 things that you need to know. Focus on the simplest way to reach that goal. And we also have something special that Jessica and I have put together for those of you who would love to join the IELTS 3 Keys IELTS course. We have 2 special bonuses. One of them is if you use the link that's with this video, you will get $50 off the course, and you will also get 5 bonus pronunciation audio lessons from me. So the course is Jessica's material. This is the IELTS 3 Keys IELTS material from her, but the 5 pronunciation audio lessons are from me. They're associated with my course 50 Natural English Expressions, but they will work for anything you need to improve your pronunciation, like we talked about for the IELTS exam. So these audio lessons will also help you to improve, just an extra bonus for you all. So this bonus is going to be available only for a short time. So it's going to be available for 1 week, March 1st, 2016 until March 7th. 2016. So this is just a limited time. If you're watching this you can still get the $50 off, but these 5 pronunciation lessons will not be included. So don't wait. And I'm really glad that we can offer this to you guys. It's really cool to be able to interview Jessica and talk about these things together.
And I mean, the bonus that you added is perfect, because like I said, I mean, students freak out about the speaking test. It is scary. And helping your pronunciation, helping students with their pronunciation, that's the easiest way to increase their score. So this package is like a dream for IELTS students. It should be a dream for IELTS students.
Yes, yes. And I really appreciate you taking your time too to explain everything about IELTS. I think that people who are watching this will learn more about you and also just feel comfortable with your teaching style, to know that you really know the IELTS test and you're not teaching it just as test taking skills, but this is speaking and general English skills that's going to help them in a lot of situations.
And it's not boring. I have gone through so many like online IELTS classes and to compare what other people are doing. Oh my goodness, like so many of the videos are like an old British dude in like a bad jacket, like in front of a whiteboard, like obviously our course is not like that. It's me and I have this much energy all the time. So
yes, you'll have fun and enjoy yourself and also be able to improve. So sounds like the winning combination.
Totally, exactly.
Yes. And thanks so much for taking the time to make this video together, to give this really valuable information to everyone who's watching and just explain the IELTS test further. Thanks so much, Jessica.
My pleasure. It was super fun, Vanessa. Thank you for having me. It was awesome.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I hope we can talk to you again. Everyone who is interested in joining your course, will see you again. They will see you inside the course, and they'll also get my pronunciation lessons. I'm sure that will be great.
Yep, you will see hours of me in the course.
Wonderful. That sounds like a good deal. So thanks so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Awesome. Thank you. You too, Vanessa.
Bye.